Thank you for joining this webinar. This is entitled Understanding Your Award Notification. My name is Joanne Brown, Director of Undergraduate Operations in the Financial Aid Office here at the University of Miami. I am also joined by Francis Arque, Senior Advisor, who will help with the questions. If at any point in time you have questions during this webinar, please, instead of raising your hand, utilize the chat room feature, which is located on your right. Today we're going to discuss award notifications, and in order to receive an award notification at the University of Miami, we need to have a file completed for financial aid. That includes the application process as well as required documentation and the review completed. So we'll discuss the application process, the required documentation, the Cane-Link to-do list so that you understand how to navigate the system to find out what exactly is requested, as well as the iDocs student portal process for those students who are first-time profile applicants. We're going to talk about the award notification both in the paper hard copy form that is sent out to newly admitted students, as well as navigating Cane-Link Student Center to find your financial aid award notification and understand what it is that you're seeing. In any award calculation, we start with the cost of attendance and we utilize a family contribution, so I'll explain those components to the formula. And we're going to talk about important messages. If there's something unique about a student's record, we want to add important messages to tell the student this is what's affecting your award notification, or this is how the award was calculated. I'd like you to be aware of the Federal Shopping Sheet. This is a consumer information vehicle, and it provides some really important information for you, so we'll talk about that. I'll go over terms and conditions, which are students' rights and responsibilities as a recipient of student financial aid. And then we will go over the components of both the Communication Center and the Message Center. This is how we communicate out to students, and we'd like you to be aware of how to access both of those, and then how to connect with our office. We've got some new and exciting features for connecting with the Office of Student Financial Assistance. The financial aid awarding process begins one of two ways. For new applicants to the university, indicating a yes to the financial aid interest question on a common application for admission to the university is the first step. Then, each year thereafter, we assign to-do items each year, assuming the student wishes to continue to apply for need-based financial aid. For continuing students who had not previously applied for financial aid, you may either complete either the CSS profile or the FAFSA to start the process, or notify our office. Either way, it will start the process so that we can assign the checklist to you in your Cane-Link to get you started in the right direction. The screen here shows the website to begin the CSS profile application. The application becomes available each year, October 1st, and the application must be resubmitted each year. Completion of the CSS profile and the non-custodial parent profile, if the biological parents are not married, is critical to being considered for need-based aid. This is different from the FAFSA because it does require non-custodial parent participation, and the University of Miami considers the non-custodial parent's ability to contribute towards the education. The website shown here is for completing the FAFSA, which is also called the free application for federal student aid. This is required for consideration of federal aid, including federal Pell Grant and federal loans. This application also becomes available now October 1st. In prior years, it would become available January 1, and you always had to estimate your tax and income information. Now, with it being released a few months earlier, it does line up well with the CSS profile. Both the CSS profile and the FAFSA will require the prior year's information. I'll explain that concept in a moment. No financial aid award packages can be created if there are outstanding financial aid to-do items, also called checklists. The above shows the required documentation for all UM undergraduate students applying for need-based aid at the University of Miami for 2017-18. Once received, a thorough needs analysis is done to determine the family's ability to contribute toward education, and in doing this, we can make a determination of the student's financial need. All first-time CSS profile filers for 2017-18 must submit the requested documentation to the College Board's iDocs service. All renewing undergraduate financial aid applications for continuing students more than likely submitted their 2015 documentation this past year for 16-17. But this is a unique year going forward in that both the CSS profile and the FAFSA went to a new concept called prior year. This was a result of an executive action by the Obama administration, and we don't know if it will continue for future years, but it is in effect for 2017-18. The advantage to prior year is that you are using tax forms and documentation, which is most certainly available since it was the prior year's filing. There are a couple ways to determine if you have outstanding to-do items. First, the student may log into the Cane-Link Student Center to view their to-do item. You can see that on the right under box number 4. All students and applicants to the university can have a Cane-Link account set up and can view their to-do items. The top box here shows a closer view of what that to-do list will look like. Note the link at the bottom of that box that says More. I encourage you to click on this as it will give you more information about the to-do items. You will be provided with an explanation of the request as well as the current status of the item, such as whether it's initiated and requested or received pending review or incomplete. The additional information that may be provided, though, is that it could give you a link to external resources that you might need. For example, if you saw a to-do item for a tax transcript and you click on More, that to-do item will explain the details that are necessary and provide you with a link to the IRS website, where you merely click on that and can proceed with making the request from the IRS for that tax transcript. For those new profile filers who must submit their documents to College Board's iDoc service, you would need to log into your iDoc student portal, and you would see up-to-the-minute information here about your request. Please note that there may be a 2 to 3 day delay between what has been submitted to iDoc until our Cane-Link to-do list is updated. Once your file is complete, and in the case of an applicant to the university, we'll package your financial aid once the admissions decision has been released if you're a new student. We do package awards in certain aid pool order. For example, we're still processing the various admission application pools at the Office of Undergraduate Admission release dates. Continuing student awards typically are packaged and released in the late spring. Once packaged, all students receive an email award notification instructing them to view their awards on Cane-Link when available. To view on Cane-Link, once again, the student goes to the Student Center on Cane-Link, clicks on View Financial Aid, which is shown by number 5 above. For returning students, there may be multiple years displayed on the next screen, so you would click on the correct academic year. This upcoming year, beginning with summer 2017, is the 2017-18 academic year. Remember to always monitor your to-do items, as new items will be added throughout the year. And the to-do list is not just for financial aid. You may see to-do items from other departments across campus. This is a sample of what an award notification would look like in Cane-Link once you have clicked to view the financial aid award. It's a sample only. This represents an illustration of what a hard copy award notification for a newly admitted student would look like. Now you'll see there are 3 different areas indicated by numbers 1, 2, and 3. This When awarding financial aid, we always begin with assigning a cost of attendance, and this is shown by number 1. The cost of attendance varies depending on the housing choice for the student, as indicated on the CSS profile or the FAFSA, and the transportation allowance, which is based on the student's state of permanent residence. Notice the blue arrow. This is where you'll find the housing code choice that was used to establish the cost of attendance. A student living with parent or relative will not have an allowance for housing and meals, as they incur no additional related charges for those. It is important to verify the housing choice, because if this is incorrect, then it could mean that the award package is not exactly correct as it should be because of the housing choice. Because as you'll see in the formula at the bottom, the formula to calculate family contribution starts with that estimated cost of attendance. It is assumed that all undergraduate students will be enrolled full-time with full-time mandatory fees. And then finally, an allowance is provided for books and personal expenses. Section 2 will list the sources of assistance. This will include any aid that is awarded up to this date for the student. For further information and explanation about the types of assistance, I will refer you to our website. If you view this award notification on CaneLink in the Student Center, you can actually click on the items that are awarded, and it will provide some additional detail about each item that is listed. In this particular example, you'll see that there's scholarships as well as student loans and federal work study offered. In addition, you have a Coral grant, which is a need-based grant from the institution. Lastly, note Section 3 that has the estimated family contribution. This is calculated simply by taking the estimated cost of attendance in Section 1, then subtracting the aid that is awarded in Section 2. This may be different than what you saw as your expected family contribution on your FAFSA or your CSS profile, because it will also include any unmet need or a difference between the cost of attendance and the aid that has been awarded. We call that the gap. So the expected family contribution or estimated family contribution will include the calculated family contribution from the CSS profile, but it also includes any gap. If you're viewing the financial aid awards on the student portal, you will have access to the cost of attendance information by clicking on Estimated Financial Aid Budget, shown here by the blue arrow. To calculate financial need, this is the simple formula that starts again with the cost of attendance, which includes tuition fees, books and supplies, possibly room and board for on and off campus students, transportation and personal expenses. We subtract from that the expected family contribution, which is a measure of the family's capacity over time to afford the education or absorb the educational costs. Then we subtract any other aid that we know about: entitlement aid, federal Pell Grant, state scholarships such as Bright Futures, any outside scholarships the student has informed us of, agency assistance, fee waivers, athletic awards. The bottom line is the financial need, and that's what we try to cover. We're not a school that meets 100% need, but each year we are making great strides towards doing that, and so we realize that is an initiative of President Frank, and the university hopes to one day be able to boast that we can meet 100% need of our undergraduate students. We recognize with the implementation of prior year, where the applications require the use of tax and income data from nearly 2 years ago, may create a problem for those families whose income dropped in 2016. Those families are encouraged to discuss these situations with our office once you've filed your 2016 federal taxes. We have in place a request for review appeals process where we may be able to take your unique circumstances into consideration. Please note that this is not a mechanism for appealing just because you think you should get more aid. When we complete our thorough needs analysis and package awards, we go out with the best aid package we can offer at that time based on the calculated need and the available resources. As a reminder, need is calculated by the cost of attendance minus the expected family contribution minus entitlement aid, and then that equals need. So it stands to reason that if your income has significantly changed or gone down in 2016, it may impact your EFC by decreasing. Therefore, the student would demonstrate more financial need. We may be able to help. However, we will not review an appeal until all required documentation is received. The documentation required will include your 2016 federal taxes and W-2s, as well as supporting documents substantiating the loss of income. Reasons for the appeal might include termination or layoff from employment for the parent. It will not include child support payments stopping. Because we consider the contribution from both a non-custodial parent and the expected family contribution, a non-custodial parent that no longer pays child support would have that income available to contribute toward the student's education. Therefore, the contribution shifts commensurately from one parent to the other, but there's no change in the total expected contribution. This is for institutional dollars. However, if there is a significant change in the custodial parent's resources for federal purposes, you should discuss this with a financial aid representative because there may be an adjustment to the FAFSA information because of a loss of income. In the FAFSA situation, the non-custodial parent's income is not taken into consideration. Again, for more information, please discuss this with a member of our staff. And it's also a good point at this time to tell you the review or appeal policies may change from institution to institution. So if you're a newly admitted student and you're comparing what the University of Miami will do in an appeal or a review process versus another school, please understand that schools can render professional judgment, and that will vary from institution to institution. A very important tool we use for communication to students about their awards, and in some cases how we calculated their awards, is through the use of award messages. These are very important, and they're available both online and on paper form. To view the award messages online, you click on View Important Messages, which is shown by the blue arrow. It is important to note that when we assign award messages, we typically assign them with an expiration date that is set for about 30 days. The reason is that any revised award notification may have a new important message that could conflict with the prior message. Therefore, the system will expire the old message from the portal. For example, if the initial award notification has the message telling you that we budgeted the student for on-campus housing, and then the student notified us that they're going to be a commuter student from their parents' home, instead, the revised award notification would have the new message that the housing selection is with parent or relative. In this case, we wouldn't want both messages to display to the student because that would cause confusion. Here's another example of how important an award message might be. In year one at the university, perhaps the student has a sibling in college. When there's more than one student enrolled in college, it does have an impact on the expected family contribution. But based on the age of the sibling is determined by the information you provide on the CSS profile, it's likely that that sibling is going to be graduating next year. We would want to give the student a heads up that in future years, when that sibling is no longer enrolled in college, this could have an impact on the expected family contribution and therefore could affect the student's demonstrated need and eligibility for need-based aid in future years. This is an example of what the important messages look like on the paper notifications. The award messages display at the bottom, and as you would imagine, the award messages that are pertinent and in effect as of the date of that printing are what you'll see. So it's date specific to the printing of that award notification. Now let's look at the federal shopping sheet. The federal shopping sheet is the federal mandate that was implemented a few years ago. You will see the link to view the federal shopping sheet on the View Financial Aid screen. You'll see it there by the blue arrow. The purpose of the federal shopping sheet is to provide you, the consumer, with important information about the institution you're choosing to attend. Here you will see important information such as graduation rate for the University of Miami. You'll notice that this provides detail about the loan options that are being offered to the student, and then just to the right, it provides a link to a website about repaying the loan so that before you make a decision to accept a student loan, you know exactly what your repayment terms and repayment amounts might be. The University of Miami Office of Student Financial Assistance and Employment has provided important terms and conditions for students to know their rights and their responsibilities as a financial aid recipient at UM. For those students receiving a paper award notification, the terms and conditions are found on the reverse side of your award notification. I cannot stress enough the importance of this information. For example, note the information about census date fixed enrollment. Census date is set every fall and spring after the dropout period, and it's what we call an enrollment freeze, where we lock in the number of credits that a student has, and their financial aid will be set according to that with two exceptions. The one exception is if the student has Florida Bright Futures, because the state of Florida requires that we continue to adjust that since the award is based on a per credit hour rate. And in the case of a complete withdrawal from the university, because at that point a federal regulation requirement called Return to Title IV calculation would override any freeze that we have in place. So it's important to understand the things that are found in terms and conditions. Not only does it tell you about the student's rights, but also their responsibilities as a financial aid recipient. Another responsibility of the student is to notify us of outside scholarship resources. You'll see that on the left-hand column by the blue area. Federal regulations require, or blue arrow rather, federal regulations require that students notify us of any outside resources that they're receiving for their education, and they must be taken into consideration when calculating need-based aid for federal aid. So that information is found in terms and conditions, and you'll see others there. We do alert students to the fact that they'll be measured their progress. It's called Satisfactory Academic Progress, or SAP for short. That's at the bottom left of this column. SAP is an important responsibility for the student. They must maintain certain GPA, certain number of credit completion ratio in order to continue receiving financial aid. There's the different measures we do. The federal and need-based aid from the university, that measure is done at the end of every term, summer, fall, spring, every term of enrollment, whereas the merit aid is evaluated at the end of spring semester. Students that don't receive the hard copy award notification can still, though, see their terms and conditions on our website. This is the link to the website, finaid.miami.edu, and then you would click on Applying for Aid, and in the drop-down menu, click on Terms and Conditions. Again, it's a student's responsibility to know the terms and conditions. Communications that are sent to students are stored in CaneLink on the student portal. Currently, the most common method to communicate with students is through Communication Center. This shows how to navigate to Communication Center, box number 3. Once you click on Communication Center, you can see the detail of the various communications that are sent through CaneLink to the student. They are shown in reverse chronological order. Newer students can also find their acceptance letter here, their merit agreement if they received a scholarship, and various other documents. This is not just financial aid communication. You may click on any of the communications to view a PDF of the document and to print it if necessary. When a new communication is sent to the student will get an email each time a communication is generated. A newer method to communicate with students is Message Center. This is shown by the blue arrow. While the messages are still stored here and may be printed, students are notified only once per day if they have unread messages. They will continue to get that daily message until they have no unread messages in their center. More and more types of communications from our office will be moving to Message Center, so be sure you keep an eye on both. We began a new monthly newsletter a few months ago. In this newsletter, we try to convey some pertinent and timely news to our families. If you've received it, we hope you're enjoying the information. We try to have a little fun with it by introducing you to some of our staff members each month, and we also announce upcoming critical dates and events such as webinars like this. If you've not received the newsletter and would like to, please drop us an email and let us know to add you to the mailing list. The newsletter comes out once per month, typically around the first of the month. We're also on Twitter and have our own YouTube channel. In fact, this webinar and others that we have had and will be having are recorded and uploaded to our YouTube channel. Check them out. And please follow us on Twitter. Important information such as office closing, event announcements are also tweeted out. Finally, as we wrap up, here are the office hours for walk-in and phone support for the Office of Student Financial Assistance and Employment. In addition, our email address for undergraduate financial aid and student employment is also provided. Upcoming webinar topics will be University Payment Plans and Financing Options, which will be held March 21st, and Understanding Your University Bill, which will be coming out sometime in late June. Stay tuned to our Twitter feed, our newsletter, or our website for additional information which will be forthcoming about those webinars. Thank you for joining us, and I thank Francis for facilitating the chat room questions for me. If you have additional questions at this time, please send us an email at osas@miami.edu. Thank you, and good night.